Let's start off here with Bitcoin on the 4 hour. First thing I'm going to do is talk about a little bit of an update to the pattern we were talking about a couple days ago, and then we're going to zoom out and talk about kind of a macro pattern, seeing where we're at in this larger Bitcoin market cycle, and if we can expect basically a return to the bull market or if we're starting to look towards a bear market again. So here we are on the 4 hour, and last week, or a few days ago, I was talking about these channels here and whether we were carving out either a larger wedge here, you can see, with these golden lines that I put here, or this descending channel, which I marked with these blue lines, and we don't really know yet. That's still kind of what we're deciding. Right now, we're testing on the lower end of this wedge. A solid breakdown below this wedge, also below about 9.5, this Fibonacci level, would pretty much tell us that we're in this descending channel after all. However, we have tested on here and held this wedge, this ascending line, several times now, and I'll talk a little bit more about its significance in a moment. But basically, that's the bull scenario. As we hold inside this wedge, I was actually thinking we might be about to start another ascending channel, like these tighter ascending channels inside here. They've been getting even more narrow as time goes on. Thought we might be about to start another ascending one, but it's unclear because we are testing downward right now. So if we're able to hold above this line, we probably will start testing back up. It might be another fairly narrow ascending channel. And then we're looking to test at about 10.4, again at about 11. And obviously we need to get up to the top of this channel at about 12, which even if it does go up, we won't really know if we're in the wedge or this descending channel yet until we test back down again. But that would be the first thing to watch for a bull scenario, is that we start testing up 10.4, 11, up to 12, and eventually we're going to want to break out to the top. If we're not able to break out to the top, we eventually are going to have to decide, and if we break down below this wedge, then we are in this descending channel. Now, I'm going to switch to the daily here in a second and talk about why, one, that might be what's happening. We might be about to break down for a little bit more downside, and two, that might not be that unhealthy. So let's talk about a couple of other things on a larger time frame. Let's switch to the daily. I've zoomed out on the daily here to talk about a certain idea I've heard recently, that we are kind of entering into an echo of the price rally we saw back in 2017. So I've highlighted some of the key, like, kind of similar patterns that are going on here. We see a little bit of a peak followed by a dip preceding the parabolic run. I saw the same thing here, parabolic run. Saw two peaks, one higher than the other. First one's higher, second one's lower. And then a pretty significant correction, and then almost halfway back up rise, and then another correction. Pretty significant correction, came back up a bit, and we're in another correction. Now, if this continues to play out in the same fashion, we would expect to see not too much more downside, maybe between 9 and 9.5, but some consolidation with lower highs occurring as we kind of continue with more tight sideways consolidation action. For how far and to what end? For that, I want to zoom out a little more, go logarithmic, and talk about a larger price line that we've been holding on for a very long time with Bitcoin. So let's check out logarithmic. The last thing I want to talk about here is this longer term trend line that Bitcoin has repeatedly returned to over its history. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on it after the last cycle, really. And so I think the healthiest thing we could see for Bitcoin would be kind of a return to this trend line. Now, there's a couple of different ways that could happen. If we are repeating the last cycle but on a smaller level, we might see sort of a sideways squiggle bringing us back, maybe with a slight downward, but bringing us back to this trend line, which we could then start to carry up on and eventually reach new highs. I think that's the healthiest. I think it's probably the most likely. It might be more volatile than my squiggle looks, but there are two other possibilities. One is, of course, we could see more upside first, even testing on the all-time high or something, and then coming back to that trend line. It'd be a little less healthy, I think. It'd be more boom and bust. It would be not the best for our perception of Bitcoin. Certainly not as healthy as like stability, but it could happen. And then, of course, we could also kind of crash more immediately down and then start carrying up this trend line. That wouldn't be too bad. I honestly kind of hope that version happens the most in order to get cheaper Bitcoin. You know, we should all be kind of hoping for that. We would probably go down to around the 5 to 6 or around 6,000 level. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen, but it would be the best for our, stack and sats. But I think that realistically, again, that would be kind of intense and not great for our public image. So I think the sideways action is the one that is most likely, based on the fact that we do seem to be replicating this pattern, and the healthiest for Bitcoin. So that's not so much a prediction, but that's kind of my best guess right now. Well, that ought to do it for me yet again. As I'm always saying, this is not investment advice. This is just my personal opinion. Do your own research, make your own decisions. Until next time, don't forget that like and subscribe. Good luck with those trades.